Welcome to Healthcare Mad Genius. My name is Derk Grant, President and CEO of HMG Healthcare. And with us today, we have Derk Grant, our infection preventionist at Park Manor of Conroe. Welcome to the program, Derk.
Thank you.
I'd like to start off, first welcome you to the program, and thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know how hectic it gets for everybody right now coming out of the pandemic.
It can't be.
But thank you for being here. Start off the broadcast with telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I've been a nurse for an LVN for about 6 years. Here in Texas for just about 2. I'm originally from, sounds like a dirty word, but from California.
Not for me. I love California. I spend
like the
a
land.
lot of time out in
Laguna
Beach every summer. So I'm shocked that you would come from, was it Southern California you came from?
No, I'm from the Yosemite area.
Even prettier.
Yes.
And yet you come to where we have no air in Houston, and
No
they sucked it
mountains,
right
it's
out.
flat.
What made you choose to come down to Texas, and more specifically down to the Houston metropolitan area?
Looking into it, I was just able to provide a better life for my family, my wife and 2 kids.
Excellent.
So,
how old are your kids?
My daughter's 14 and my little man-child's 10. So
I have a 15-year-old daughter, so I feel for you. More power to you, sir.
She just went to her first school dance and it was awful. I could have handled it better.
And well, we all could. So and we're fighting through it. But it preps you for all the fun stuff you get to do as an IP at Park Manor of Conroe.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the transition from being a charge nurse and or just doing med surg, whatever else, to actually now coming in as an infection preventionist. How's that transition like?
The transition from that is obviously I don't do nearly as much patient care anymore. So I do miss that at times, but it's just a different beast. It's a different workload. And so for me personally, when I came into this role, there wasn't an IP nurse there for about the first 3 months that I was there. And so it was kind of, they just showed me to my office and they're like, everything you need is in here. And I was like,
lovely.
Oh. So I got some training, from Leslie, and they were wonderful. She still is like my best friend right now. I call her all the time. She is. But it was like, you should have this in place and this in place. And I was like, oh no, those don't exist. So
makes me feel warm and fuzzy as a CEO that we had all these systems in place to acclimate you to your new role.
Every binder and program that exists in Park Manor of Conroe I've had to piece together through the help of Leslie and my administrator and our DON, and so it's been a fun challenge kind of putting those pieces together to make it not only functional but efficient.
So obviously coming in, thank you for putting all that together, because it's such an important role coming off the pandemic, and infection control is always a big player in post-acute care. So really appreciate that. Past obviously the systems and putting those systems in place, what's your biggest challenge?
My biggest challenge would probably be communication through doctors to nurses to CNAs to patients' families, and trying to make sure everyone's kind of on the same page, especially when different pathogens or bacteria involved in different isolation protocols and COVID protocols changing what seems like every 5 minutes. But that's probably been one of the biggest hurdles to overcome, is trying to keep everyone up to date with what they're supposed to be doing and what should be happening.
Wonderful. And tell me then, conversely on that point, tell me what you enjoy most about your role.
I like the fact that it's kind of I feel like not a whole lot of people know what infection control nurses do.
Right. And
so it's fun having to work with pretty much every different auxiliary that's there and trying to make sure everyone's kind of doing the same thing for, to keep the staff safe, to keep the residents safe, the visitors safe. But it's just nice kind of putting those puzzle pieces together to make it work in the best way you can get it to work.
Wonderful, wonderful. Tell me a little bit about just the overall culture at Park Manor of Conroe. And you've worked in other places, you've worked in other states. Now you're working there at Park Manor of Conroe. Tell me what it's like to work at that facility.
I've been there for just shy of 2 years. I was promoted to the IP nurse after about 6 months I was there, and I've enjoyed working at Park Manor of Conroe. I think any facility like that, the best and worst thing about the facilities can often be the people. So
Totally agree.
it's kind
Listen
of
to people.
pros and cons about both. But with what I'm doing, the managers that are there at Park Manor have been vital to what I do. They take criticism well, they take instruction well, and they help you out. They help out more than they should. Like
Right.
they're wonderful to support.
Yeah.
And so from the administrator Crystal to the DON Ramona and the ADON and the nurse, the floor managers, they step in when they need to. If for some reason someone calls in and we're short, they're there to help. It's everyone helps out. It's kind of all hands on deck, and so it's been a very different culture seeing that from a lot of other facilities I've worked at, where it's kind of you do your own thing, and if you're sinking, it's not my responsibility, not my job. So
That's good. I like to hear
it's a
the
nice
teamwork.
change.
And Ramona, we've had the company for 11 years, and Ramona's been with us that pretty much that entire time. So I agree with you. She's one heck of a lady and does a lot of things really well for a long period of time. And that's hard to do. And as you well know, in post-acute care, that's not an easy gig, running those facility and keeping everybody in line. So I'm glad to hear that. I'll ask you some questions. Any questions when we have guests on? Any questions that you might want to ask of me?
Yeah. Like I said, I've been a nurse for about 6 years, and if I remember right, you were a CNA at one time. So there's, especially with COVID and everything, there's such a high turnover rate. You know, it seems like a lot of nurses, they get a job and then they start immediately looking for another job, whether it's better pay or better benefits or whatever. What's something, or what's an issue you guys have been running into with retention versus something you're doing to combat that?
I think the biggest issue with the pandemic obviously was burnout, and there were so many people. You heard so many healthcare hero stories about people that were doing all these different things, but that really, unfortunately, mostly pertained to the stories you heard were the stories about the acute care settings and the hospitals.
Yeah.
And while we were dealing with the same battles in our team members and all the folks at the facility, they were really pushing rocks up hills along that line, and so it got really frustrating for them, and so there was a lot of burnout and fatigue. At HMG, as we did that, it's like having a restaurant, but you still have to have service, right? If people are already sitting in your restaurant, you can't just not take care of people. So obviously we've run into some agency issues, and again, I'm not anti-agency. You have to be able to staff your facilities and make sure that they're done. Yeah, and so people want to make that money, but you don't always have people like yourself. They're not quite as invested in the facility. They're not quite as invested in the patients or the residents. And so it makes it somewhat challenging. And to combat that, I mean, we tried, and we were somewhat fortunate that we had put things in place before we had our healthcare Mad Genius program, to where, you know, we have some facilities where we've got CNAs when they do nice stuff, we get poker chips, and I'm sure you've seen that program there. And some of our facilities, one not far from here, I think I have more CNAs carrying Louis Vuitton bags than most of our people up here that I see sometimes at North Park Mall in Dallas. But we put some of those things in place to start that. Subsequent to that, we'd started HMGU, which is our university program. Lots of organizations have programs that have tuition reimbursement, but we want to do it a little bit different. There's nothing out of pocket. There's an application process. We work with different nursing schools in the state. We work with some nursing schools outside the state in Kansas. And so we've got roughly 40 students that we're working with right now and mentoring, trying to get them through the program to help. So it's an everyday focus. I totally agree with you. Human capital is the #1 priority, past taking care of our patient population in the facilities, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. So we're going to have to continue to sharpen our pencils with regards to recruitment and retention, and so it keeps us on our toes.
I get it. Money talks, unfortunately.
It does.
That's how I don't have that nice story of I want to help people, you know, getting myself into nursing. I was a skydiving instructor when I got into nursing.
Oh my goodness.
So I got into nursing for a good schedule and money, and then I just kind of ran with it and been doing it ever since. And it's been nice that I just kind of love it.
And now you take care of people.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for tuning in to Healthcare Mad Genius. We'll look forward to our next episode, and we'll see you on the flip side. Thank you so much.
Taking care of people is something that's always been something I've thought about but never quite focused on, you know, until I became a nurse. And it wasn't really until I became a wound nurse that I kind of really started seeing the benefits of that, because it was something tangible for me. It was something I did X, Y, Z. I had the wound closed, and I saw their life improve. They either walked better, or they got healthier. And so seeing those changes in people's lives and in the families is something that I've always enjoyed seeing. And so it makes me feel good, it makes the family feel good, and it makes the patient feel good, obviously. And so you're taking something, a lot of times when patients are seeing nurses or doctors, something went wrong. And so you can take that negative aspect, that negative moment in their life, and just make it a little bit better by a smile or talking to them and just relating to them on a different level. And you can just make that moment just a little bit more positive out of a negative that they're having in their life at that time.
Thank you.
That was good.